Hello everyone, this is yet another episode of Career Talks, and in today's episode we'll be talking with Gertrude Nonterah. Gertrude is a graduate in PhD in microbiology and immunology from Temple University, where she graduated in 2015. And she went on to so many challenges since then. Today she's a technical writer, she's a mother, she's a freelancer, she's an educator, she's a thought leader, you name it. And today we'll be talking about her career story, her lessons, and how she can help PhDs build the future. Great to have you, Gertrude. I'm so excited to have you here at the channel, and let's get it going. Hello everyone, welcome to the Career Talks, and today we have a special guest, Gertrude Nonterah, who is well known for her fantastic LinkedIn activity and acting on behalf of graduate students and young people who develop their careers in the complex world of today. And thank you so much, Gertrude, for being with us. And I'm excited to hear about your career path so far. And please tell us a little bit about your story and what you're doing today and how you grew into the person who you are today and what we could learn from you and to be like you.
Thank you, Natalia, for inviting me to Ontology of Value. I really appreciate it. My name is Gertrude Nonterah, as you said, and I finished my PhD in microbiology and immunology back in 2015 from Temple University School of Medicine. And I realized then, even before I finished, I started getting this idea that I didn't want to really stay in academia. I could teach and I could write, and those two things I definitely enjoyed about my PhD, but becoming a career researcher, consistent, always having to write grants, and that didn't appeal to me at all. And I think because it did not, even though I did okay, I ended up publishing papers whilst I was in my PhD. I'm really grateful to my PI because I know that not every graduate student who ends up in, even you can end up in a really great lab, or in a great advisor's, under a great advisor, but still not published. But with my advisor, she was really, really helpful in helping me publish papers by the time I was done. So you would have thought that with, that many papers, I had, I think, 4 papers or so by the time I was done. 2 of them were first author, 2 of them were middle author. So it was like if I was trying to become an academic, that would be perfect, right? But I realized it wasn't really for me. And so I decided, okay, since this is not for me, what else can I do? Right. And so I began to read a blog, actually. It's still around, called The Cheeky Scientist, very good blog. And he was talking about finding careers outside of academia. And I began to find that there was a whole world, if I didn't want to stay in academia, there was a whole world out there that I could explore. And some of the careers I came across were medical writing, medical science liaison, becoming a field application scientist. There were so many roles out there.
Ontology of Value, we help professionals with developing their potential, building value, and navigating towards their dream careers. We offer intensive career orientation courses combining self-discovery with practical information about the job market. We also work on our own educational materials such as books and self-navigation manuals. Our new tool, the Ontology of Value test, will help you discover what your natural way of creating value in the job market is and which working environment fits you best. If you'd like to stay in touch with us and receive monthly updates, please subscribe to the newsletter.
Yes, so once I decided that I didn't really want to be in academia, I began to explore these paths. But I started a postdoc anyway, right? And I think that this is one of the first lessons here is, if you don't want to be on a certain path, it's important that maybe you don't continue to stay on that path. And sometimes we'll try to justify it, right? We'll try to say things like, oh, but this is what everybody does. I don't know anybody that has gone outside of academia. Or maybe it's a waste. Like, I wrote all these papers. If I don't continue, then it's going to be a waste of my time. It's going to be a waste of my talent. And at first, I think this is how I was thinking. So I started a postdoc, and again, in my postdoc, like it really came to me that I don't want to be in academia. So I had a really good advisor during my postdoc, but I think my saving grace was that about 2 years and 11 months into my postdoc, funding ran out. So when funding went out, the PI had to lay all of us off. And that was when I woke up to the reality, okay, this is a sign. I don't want to be here. Now I've been given an out, I've been given a key to leave. It's time to leave, So what did I do leading up to that? Now I am a medical writer with a marketing agency that caters to life and health science companies. And the way that I was able to get into that role is a whole long story. But during my postdoc, I began to freelance write. I was doing freelance writing on the side. So I had a side business. And this was because at the time, we live in California now. So I went to school in Pennsylvania. And that's all the way, if you look at the map of the US, it's all the way on the East Coast. And then California, you have to cross the whole country to come to California. So it's actually a 6-hour flight to come from Philadelphia to California. Anyway, when we came here, we realized very quickly life was super expensive in California. And in order to continue to survive, I had to have something on the side. And so I began to freelance write. So doing that freelance writing whilst I was in my postdoc really laid the foundation for me to enter into medical writing.
Wow. That's how did you manage to freelance on the side as a postdoc in California? That must have been a hard work.
It was.
Imagine.
It was. So usually what would happen would be I'd go to work at the lab from 9 to about 6 p.m. I would come home, I would spend time with my family, eat dinner, and usually between 9 and 11, that's when I would write. So it's really consistent with that schedule that I would come home, and between 9 and 11, this is when I would take the assignments that my clients had given me, because I was building clientele. At the time, I was not even writing anything in science. I was writing things in personal finance, business. Like I was writing other types of articles, nothing to do with science, but it helped me build my writing skill, right? And so, yeah, between 9 and 11, that's exactly when I would sit at my computer. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. My desk was in our bedroom. And so I would go, my husband would put my child to sleep. I would go to our bedroom and I'd just be typing away for 2 hours.
Wow. That's an amazing self-discipline. I wish I had that. I wish I had that. I admire writers who can say that this is my working schedule. This is when I write. Because for me, if I don't have inspiration, if I have like a day when I'm like, I don't know how to like bite this problem. I don't know from which side. Sometimes I have a day when I can write 10 pages of text just straight away. Sometimes like nothing, like the text doesn't really play. So like just assigning slots for writing for me doesn't make sense. I cannot just sit down and do it, for 2 hours straight, like whenever I want to. It's like I admire people like you who can do it. So tell me more about what you're doing, because you mentioned that you have a marketing agency, right? So what type of marketing? Like it's a big area, like big industry today. So can you tell us?
Yes. So I work within a marketing agency. The agency is called CG Life. I don't own the agency. The agency is owned, was started by another group of people. But within our marketing agency, what we do a plethora of things. We do PR, public relations, for life and health science companies, so pharmaceutical companies, agriculture companies, any life sciences company, really. We will do PR for them. We also create content, and so that could be written blog posts, that could be educational white papers, that could be social media, any kind of marketing content in that sense. I'm on that team, I'm on the content team, and it's our responsibility to create that content to put out there. Content marketing is a really powerful way. What you're doing with Ontology of Value, that's content marketing, right? You just create a piece of content, you put it out there, and then hopefully if you do a good job, right, the algorithms of YouTube or of Google or of LinkedIn will pick that up and show it to more people. And as you get more exposure, right, more people find out about you, and hopefully, usually it should land in front of the people that need the most, and they get to find out about you, and then they get to find out later also about any products you have. So for instance, with Ontology of Value, if you were offering speaking services, if you were offering coaching service, anything. So we do the same thing in the life sciences industry. We create content so that people can find them. Another part of the agency does paid advertising, and so all the ads you see on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, those types of things on Google, that's all that. So these are the different departments, and PR, content, paid media. We have a branding and strategy team. So there's actually a whole lot that is, built into the agency that you can do with the agency. So life sciences companies come to us and we do that for them.
Okay. Amazing. That's actually many people ask me this question. They like many young people, but also PhDs who are thinking about their future career paths. They are getting interested in online marketing and digital marketing. This one of these career tracks that give you a lot of personal freedom. There are a lot of directions you can go. You can do it remotely most of the time, and you can also combine multiple projects from multiple disciplines. So as an open-minded scientist, like this interesting career track to many people. So the question I often get is how to start. So in your case, you were like, you started already during your postdoc, and you did it strategically, really nicely. What would you say to this question if a young person who is now studying asks you the question, like, what would you say is the best start into this career?
That's a great question. So this is a great question because I was reading an article yesterday by Carl Zimmer. And for those that don't know who Carl Zimmer is, he's a very popular science writer and journalist here in the US. And he said people ask him this question all the time. And what he says to them is that I can tell you how I started, but I can't always tell people how they should start. And I agree. It's like, I can tell you how I started and I can give you some pointers, but ultimately everybody's path is going to be slightly different. So for me, like I told you earlier on, I started freelance writing when I was in my postdoc, right? And so there's a lot to know about writing blog posts. There's a lot to know about catching at people's attention. There's a lot to know about, because it's not just about writing clickbait headlines. It's about writing really valuable content that makes people read to the end. That's where you get the most value, right? And so the first thing I would say is that get some good books or courses on how to write well. There are several books out there. There's one book I recommend called On Writing Well. It's by William Zinsser. It's a really good book. He's very humorous, but he gives you some really good rules for writing, and it's been helpful to me. You may also want to check out organizations like the things like American Medical Writers Association, National Association of Science Writers. There's also the European Association of Science Writers or something like that. There are definitely different associations and groups out there, and they also have material, usually paid material, that you could go through to learn a little bit more, to get a little bit deeper when it comes to these subjects. So I'll say the first thing is to find resources that will help you write better. All right, so that's the first thing. The second thing is to read a whole lot. A lot of the time, people think that writing is something you do when you can't find any other job, but that's not true. Writing is it's an involving job, right? So it's not something that you can just seek into if you're not finding anything, or, oh, it's so cool to be a writer. Yeah, it's cool, but it's hard work too. So you want to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting into, right? I talked about the fact that we write white papers, we write blog posts, we write social media content. Okay, so now go find social media content that works. So maybe you follow somebody on social media and you constantly are engaging on their posts. Well, go study how they write. Like, why? You have to think it's not just about, like, yes, you can post funny cat videos, you can post like really cool dances, and those get attention. But I don't have any cool dances and I don't have any cats. So, but I get a lot of engagement on my posts, right? So maybe, and I'm not even the best example of it, right? There are people that may do it much better than me, but you have to study, why is it that when this person writes something, they get so much attention? You know, there's a reason. There are reasons. There's psychological reasons. There are, structure reasons. There's so many reasons, right? And so you want to study that. You want to study white papers. How are white papers laid out? How are case studies laid out? How are they written? How do they read? Is it formal language? Is it informal language? Blog posts tend to be a little bit more informal. White papers tend to be very heavy on research and are very more, I'm a little bit more technical, maybe. So you want to consider that, right? So you want to familiarize yourself with different documents. Then the last bit of it is to write. So when I was interviewing for the role I currently have, my now boss went and found my website, because I put it on my resume. And she looked at it, she liked it. She looked at the samples I had written, and it was one of the reasons I got the job. So if you want to be a writer, you should write. Like, it's one thing to read about it. It's one thing to take the courses. It's one thing to study other people. Now put it into practice. And so this is where I encourage people, okay, write on a place like LinkedIn has a blogging feature. You can use that if you don't want to start your own blog. Medium.com. You may also start your own blog. So there's several avenues for you to write these days. These days, you don't have to wait for somebody to accept your writing in order for your writing to be recognized. But you need to start in order for somebody to discover you and ultimately either pay you or hire you to write. So that's what I would say. Those are the 3 top things that I would encourage people to do if they want to get into a writing profession.
Actually, one question comes to my mind. It's like, how did you overcame this problem of pricing your work? Because I think for researchers, it's always hard when they first go towards freelancing or this type of activity to price their work. How was it hard for you?
It's not easy. Like, pricing is not an easy subject, even for freelancers that are really seasoned. Pricing is never easy. But I always say to myself, how much is this work worth, and what do I want to make, right? So first of all, I think you should think about what you want to make in a year, especially if you're going the freelance route. If you're going the agency route, like I was a freelancer for a while, then I became an agency writer. You get paid a salary, right? So that's a little different. But if you are a freelance writer, then I think you should think about how much do you want to make in a year, right? And then if you think about how much you want to make in a year, divide it by month. And then when you divide it by month, think about how much you would need to charge to reach that point. So let's say that you decide that you want to make $4,000 a month. You want to make let's say a nice round number is 5,000. You want to make $5,000 a month. So how much do you need to charge to get to that point? If every blog post you write is $200, that means that you need to write 25 blog posts to get to $5,000. If every blog post you write is $250, then you will need to write 20. Okay. But then also, you're not only going to write blog posts, maybe you get a contract to write a white paper, and that tends to be longer. That tends to involve more research, right? Ultimately, when you calculate it, you don't want how much you're getting paid hourly to be lower than a certain amount, right? And you can determine what that amount is. Maybe that amount is $50. You don't want to go below $50 an hour. So if it's going to take you 5 hours to write a white paper, or if it's going to take you 10 hours to write a white paper, then, and you don't want to make below $50 an hour, then you say, okay, I'm going to take that 50, I'm going to take, say, 55, and I'm going to divide it by 10 hours. That's 550. And I'm going to charge it 550. So ultimately, you have to think, the way I always figured it out was think about how much you want to make in a year, divide it by 12. How much do you want to make in a month? Then calculate back to see how many pieces do I need to write to get to 5,000.
Yeah, sounds very logic. Sounds
yeah.
And do you also cherry pick topics, or are you a volatile writer who can take any topic on your desk?
Right now, I mostly write in health and science, and so most of the things I write are in health and science. Of course, there are topics that I have no idea about. Like, I can go into a project and I have no idea on the project of the company. But this is where, as a PhD, your skill of research and your skill of being a quick learner, this is where it comes in, because I spend an incredible amount of time doing a lot of studying, researching, finding out, okay, why is this important? What are the forums? Recently, I had to work on something that I knew very, very little about. It was a white paper, and I would say I spent maybe 20 hours studying that subject so that I could write an 8-page white paper. So there's a lot of studying involved, and that's, I think, one of the things that we do well as academics is being able to take a subject and research it and study it, and then distill information from that.
And didn't you have any issue with the fact that that now you work for, you write for someone else? Like, for me, that was always an issue. Like, at some point, I also had this period after my contract expired at the university when I was writing white papers. Actually, I wrote one full white paper that was like 40-page, like huge document for one blockchain startup. And but I missed something in this project, because it was at the end of the day, I was just kind of selling my time for some shares in that company, but it was not my project, and I could never accept it in the long term. So I felt I would rather earn less and put my name on the project rather than earn more and just give my work away. So how do you feel about it?
Personally, I don't mind. I don't mind most of it, because I write enough on my own that it doesn't matter that there's a lot of stuff I've written that nobody will ever know that I wrote it. So, I think what you're talking about is ghostwriting, right? When you're a ghostwriter and you write, and in my role as a medical writer, yes, I am basically a ghostwriter because my name doesn't go on anything. But I think that if you really want your name to go on things, then there are definitely lots of publications that you can pitch to. And on the side, if you wanted to do that, you could pitch to, I mean, in at least in the, I know of things of websites like WebMD or Very Well Health and the Very Well family of websites. There's Healthline. There's several publications out there where you will be bylined. You will get a byline. So if you wanted to do that, you could definitely do that. You could also create your own blog. You could create your own assets. And, I'm doing that currently with the TheBoldPhD, and, it's mine. And so I don't feel any kind of way, I guess, about being a ghostwriter, because I create enough of my own that it doesn't matter.
Okay, that's interesting. That's a good result. That's great to know. Yeah. And I have 2 more questions for you. I will be brief. So one question is, how do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? It's like a recruitment question now.
Wow, That's such a good question, and also like complex question. So, we're originally, my family and I are originally from Ghana, and we are hoping to relocate home, and just be around family. Our parents are getting older and everything. Nieces and nephews are growing up so quickly, and so I think that in the next 5 to 10 years, most likely I'll be moving to Ghana. But also career-wise, I would say that I'm an avid content creator. And so I have my YouTube channel, The Bold PhD. I have a blog that I'm slowly building up for theboldphd.com. I'm speaking a lot recently at universities about PhDs and careers outside of academia. And so there's all this opportunity, right, for me to explore that alongside doing the formal work, right? And so for me, I see myself continuing to create content, continuing to build a business around the Bold PhD and careers outside of academia, and mentoring people to not be afraid and not be scared of really stepping out of academia and exploring what else is out there for them. So I look forward to really building on that. And then I don't know, I think I'm going to continue to write. I'm also a novel. I'm trying to write novels. So I hope to write those. And then maybe, I don't know if I want to start my own medical writing agency, but that looks likely in the future as well.
Awesome. Yeah, you would definitely carry that project. I can see that. That's amazing. Okay, so my last question for you would be: is there any general career advice that you would give to PhD students who are now starting their programs in sciences?
Yes, I would tell them to be open-minded. And the reason I would tell them to be open-minded is because I was just having a conversation with Teresa Ambrosio, who is going to be on my YouTube channel. And we were talking about careers and academic positions. And she said when she was at the University of Nottingham in the UK, they were told that academic jobs, only about 3% of PhDs who graduate will get an academic job. So it was unrealistic for the PhD students to think that they were going to get academic jobs, right? Because 3%, that's 3 out of every 100, okay? So they were really encouraged to begin putting themselves out there before they graduated. And so she became very active on LinkedIn, and even though she didn't publish her work, right, even though she didn't have any publications when she graduated from her PhD, because she had put herself out there on using platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram, it was a much easier opportunity for her, or much easier path for her when she finished and she was looking for careers, okay? So I'm going to say the same thing. Do not close your mind to possibilities. Academia is good. It's great. It's a stable, quote, I'm going to put it in quotes, stable job to have for a while. But the reality is that, like anything, academia is also changing, okay? Some time ago, we never thought that newspapers, right, like physical newspapers, would be out of fashion. These days, I hardly see physical newspapers. And this was just maybe 10, 15 years ago. We could hold, this morning I was just looking at the news, and I think there are some big magazines here in the US, they're going to stop production of their physical magazines. Okay, so the magazine and newspaper industry changed, and the people that kept on holding on to it and saying, it's never going to change, it's always going to be the same, they will lose. Okay, so I feel the same thing is happening in academia, where things are changing. And enrollment, because of the pandemic, a lot of universities, at least, I don't know about Europe, but at least in the US, a lot of universities have reported under enrollment. When I was teaching at a community college, there came a time where they asked some faculty to take early retirement. So you have to start thinking about these things and realizing that they're asking people to take early retirements. There's under enrollment. Only about 1 out of 5 PhDs will get a tenure track position. Something should like some light bulbs should be going off that this is an industry that's changing, and I therefore need to start getting ready to change. And this can happen to any industry, not just academia, but I'm saying academia because that's what the dream for most PhDs, right, is academia. So be open-minded because things are changing, and be open-minded because I don't want you to be so shocked when you finish your PhD and you're applying and applying and applying and applying and nobody is responding, because it's likely that that's going to happen. But if you're open-minded, then you will realize that there are opportunities in consulting, there are opportunities in, international organizations, there are opportunities in the pharmaceutical industry, there are opportunities in educational technology, in financial technology, and all these places need PhDs. They need our expertise with critical thinking, with resilience, with collaboration, with problem solving. They need that. And so these are valuable skills. When you do that, ultimately you're going to win, because you will not be shocked that when I'm applying, like I have all these papers, why is nobody paying attention? You will no longer be shocked because you prepared yourself, you were open-minded.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Gertrude, for being with us today. Thank you for your deep insights and for your story. Congratulate you on your great success with your project so far. I would like to encourage everyone to follow Gertrude's LinkedIn and YouTube channel, and look at her blog as well. And I will link, I'll put all the links below. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you everyone for watching, and till next time.